Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 212. Today I'm going to talk about Duel of Ages 2. This is obviously a re-release, kind of a redoing of Duel of Ages 1. Basically the idea with this game is, I'm not really sure what the idea of the game is. There's a lot of kind of stuff going on here. Basically, you're going to get different characters. Maybe you just deal them out, or you choose them, or you draft these different characters before you play. You kind of assemble sort of a battlefield, if you will, with various different labyrinths and different locations that you can go to and go on these sort of little mini adventures and trying to basically get achievements. So you can get for knocking other players out, or accomplishing some of the different adventures and things like that. You're going to get different achievements. So the first team to get sort of a critical mass of achievements is going to be the winner. So you get a certain number of points, so to speak, with accomplishing these different feats. So there's basically a huge variety of characters, and I don't have the math in my head. I had it in my head a second ago, but there's basically like 300 characters. I don't think quite that many. Now I've got here the sort of the base set here, and you can sort of see there's Taylor Swift, and you've got sort of a werewolf type of person, sort of a fantasy character, a dwarf, sort of a demon, and some different kind of steampunk looking guys here. Now this is just the basic set here. And then it also comes with a master set, which is huge. Now there's not really any rule differences. There's just a ton more characters and locations and different things inside the master set. It's also got henchmen, which is just a different thing, and there's just a couple extra rules. But the basic rules for the game are all in here. So you need this one, and then the master set just adds a ton of variety. So let's do a review of how it works. I don't want to get too much in the details because there are sort of a lot of, nooks and crannies and different things and different sort of check adventures and things that are going to be happening. Now it is very straightforward once you open the box and play, but just in the interest of time, I don't want to go over every single detail of this. So let's take a look, and I'll give you a good idea of how it's going to work and kind of what the game feels like, and then I'll tell you what I think of it. So just to give you a sense of what kind of comes in both of these boxes. Now I've played the game 3 times and I have not used anything from the master set at all. And I feel like basically I could play this one at least 10 more times. I mean, probably way more than that, and still get sort of a nice variety of events and characters and interactions and things happening with this. So just off the bat, if you want to just kind of get the game, definitely you can just get this and kind of see if it's for you, see if you like it. And then if you really want to, take it further and make this almost, sometimes they call them a lifestyle game, a game that you'll play forever. Pretty much, you could definitely play this forever, I think, with the master set. So let's just crack this box here, and you can see what comes in here. Of course, the rule book's in here. There's no rule book in the master set. And then you have just a few of these platters here. And these are basically, you're going to join these up, and you can see there's different terrain. You got mountains and swamps and buildings and all that kind of stuff. Cool kind of thing is you have these cool little paintings almost on the back of these that are really nice looking. So these you're going to use to set up the battlefield. You're also going to take some of these triangle looking pieces here and basically join them in these little connector spots, and some of these are going to be labyrinths and layers and different things and bases where your characters will start. And then you've got here a fair chunk of cards. I believe there's like 96 if I remember right. And these are going to be cards. Let me just open these here while I'm doing this. And these are basically, organize these into different ages here. So you can see you've got Philip Redlegs here. He's an adventurer. And then you've got Spartacus there, and then William Wallace. So these are sort of like more ancient or fantasy type of guys here. And then if we go down a little bit, we've got some more sort of modern guys. So we've got Stephen Decatur, the swashbuckler, Diaz El Gato, the blade master, York, the foot soldier. So you've got sort of realistic people, mixed with fantasy. William Wallace here. You've got Annie Oakley here, so she's a realistic person. And all these folks are going to share stats and different attributes. So you can see this guy's a male, and he's from this age and this kind of thing. Pat Garrett. And then we've got sort of aliens and different things. So you're going to mix all these up, and then if you got like Boxer here. Oh, where's my favorite one? There's here we go. Ace Cannon, the quarterback. So you're going to have like Annie Oakley, this sort of you know, Conan sort of looking guy, and then, you know, different people, some futuristic folks. So you're going to mix all these up. Now there's only 96 in here, but if we crack open this big old box here, let's take a look at that. I've actually had to chunk these up into two, so we've got now this huge stack with this huge stack. So there's just a ton of variety here, and we've got more layers and different, you know, bases and things like that. You can see some of these you're going to sort of put your adventures in and complete different tests and kind of get bonuses for people. And then we've got just a huge stack of these platters. Now, one thing that I would kind of say after playing this other one a few times here, the base set, the characters, there's tons of characters in here, but the replayability is going to be greatly enhanced by these platters. So if you get this game at all and you do like it, I would say definitely get this at least for the platters themselves, because I like to have that sort of variety of terrain and things and tactics on the board. Now the other thing that this master set's going to add is going to add a bunch of you know, sort of treasure cards and different adventures and things like that. You know, we've got different sort of challenges that are going to happen, and you've got here are the character tokens. I mean, I really need to sit down and organize this. I haven't done this yet, and that's part of the reason I haven't really broken this out, because I'd like to get some counter trays and things and better organize these character tokens. You can see here, so you've got, you know, a white side and then a black side, because basically in the game you've got a white team and a black team, so you can play, you know, 2 players, 4 players, even an odd number of players, as long as you have a even number of characters that each team as a whole is controlling. So enough of that. Here's the large variety and here's the sort of small variety. Let's take a look at how the game actually kind of works. Okay, I just kind of set up a somewhat random board here. So you can see I've got 3 of the platters, and then I've got here sort an ancient area, a futuristic area, I've got Lilith's Lair, and then up at the top here I've got a black base and a white base. I guess again there's a white team and a black team. Now, the cool thing about this rulebook, I should say before I get too much into the game, is it does basically walk you through all of the mechanics of the game, sort of in a training and a trial mode. So the first you know, training mission, if you will get you to sort of move around and just focus on melee combat. And then the next trial will focus on ranged combat. And then you start to add in these bases here, because you don't even use the bases when you first are learning the game. And then and so on. So it actually has, just while we're looking at this, a couple of really neat things that I haven't seen in a rule book before, in terms of figuring out line of sight. So it has a lot of line of sight examples here, and, you know, height and different, you know, structures and things that get in the way. But they have, you know, the sort of 2-dimensional representation as well as the 3D representation. So if you have sort of a question or confusion about something, you can actually just break this open and then, you know, look and see, like, okay, this guy's on the top, but it's into a cavern, and, you know, different things like that. So you can definitely get a good sense of what the different modifiers are going to be, because as you can see here, this is going to sort of modify your defense, if you will, you know, in a ranged combat. Now, some of the characters here are going to get different free actions that they can do, you know, based on some text down here. And then the first thing that you're going to do after the free actions is maybe fire on somebody. And again, I just talked about the line of sight. So you may be able to take a fire action, and after that point, you can move. And so the movement here is dictated by this movement speed here, and you just take your little tokens and you move around on the different hexes. Usually spaces cost you 1 movement point, but if you move into trees and, you know, all kinds of different things, it's going to adjust your movement rate. After that, and the enemy is going to have an opportunity to opportunity fire, basically if you move into their line of sight. You may melee combat, you know, if you move into the same space as somebody. And then mostly what you're going to be focused on is doing adventures. Now, the basic sort of training stuff comes with these little tokens here where you can have adventures. And these are called encounters in this case. And see, there's a ton of variety in these as well. Not only is there a lot of variety in the characters, but a lot of variety in the various challenges and encounters. So you can see here randomly, you're going to encounter a pitching mound, or a unicorn glade, or the Holy Order, or deep elves. You know, those have absolutely nothing to do with each other. But once you start advancing past those trial rounds, you're going to be able to have encounters in these different keys here. And so if we zoom in here, you can see this one here is ancient, okay? So basically, your character's going to move in here, and then each team has these little tokens here that they can use to track sort of how far they've advanced in these different arenas here. So this, think of this sort of like a portal to an ancient world, if you will. And then over here we've got a futuristic one. So you're going to have different types of adventures here. And when you go in there, you're going to draw cards from these different challenge decks. So we've got a modern deck, a future deck, and then so we've got ancient cards. So you're going to pull one of these up, and then you're going to have to do sort of a test and see sort of what the outcome is. And the tests are going to look at a lot of attributes of the character, and everything is basically a test. So even when you do combat, you're going to check and compare the stats from one character, to another, and then you're going to flip these challenge cards, which I'll show you in a second. And then some of the the adventure tests are going to be based off your strength and your intelligence and these other attributes here. But each of the characters has all the same attributes, and you can see they highlight them. So he's actually really good at melee, so it's in blue. If this guy here, Spartacus, is he's got weak range there because it's in red. So you have this giant stack of challenge cards here, and for all of the tests, you're basically going to flip a card, and these are definitely hugely multi-purpose. So they're going to sort of indicate to you the results based on what you flip up. Now the game does have rules if you want to use sub-dice rolls instead, but I kind of find this interesting here. So if we flip this up here, and so attacker is better, defender is better. So if we're doing an attack, you can say, okay, the attacker beat out whatever stats you were comparing. I'll talk about that more in a second. But if you were doing that, then it's a hit, or you're going to adjust the damage. Or if you were doing an adventure, it's going to show you sort of the success here. And then he's also have some other different attributes. So sometimes, sometimes you will need to test your luck. So you're going to flip this up, and these all have different luck values on there. And sometimes you'll need to kick somebody out of an area. Maybe they failed an adventure, and you're going to randomly kind of figure out where they're going to go. So you can check this here as well. And there's just a ton of stuff. So sometimes if you do exceptional on something, then you can check that area as well. So these all basically work the same. And basically, when you play the game, you're going to start out just kind of focusing on this area, and then as you move along from the training into the actual missions, you're going to add all the different components of the cards. Now, a lot of times the reward for these things is going to be this sort of deck of items and things. So you may get a revolver, or this sound damper, or let's see, we got a spear here, all these different things. Now you will start the adventure off with a certain number of these, kind of based on however you want to play really, but a lot of these we're going to go into your base over there, which I'll talk about in a second. There's a vault where you can store things, and then through the different adventures and encounters you're going to be able to get more of these. And the reward sometimes will be these elite cards, which are a little bit better. So you've got an elven wind sword. So you could have Johnny Quarterback walking around with an elven wind sword, or more likely because he's really good at throwing, and you may have like Molotov cocktails or something, and you may have Spartacus with the elven wind sword. So a lot of the game is going to be sort of sussing out and figuring out what the tendencies and the talents are of each of the characters based on the age that they're from, some of the different attributes here, and as well as the statistical attributes, and learning where those kind of things are going to sort of occur in these different ages and different encounters from the different ages that are going to happen. Now, in addition to the different ages, you can also basically sort of have an adventure in a base here. So you've got the vortex here. You can actually heal yourself as you take damage. You've got the prison where you can basically lock your opponents away. That's going to give you points. You've got the vault again where you're going to store cards. So you can go and have adventures in your own base, to basically try to heal different things. And then you can also go into the other opponent's base and try to basically destroy. But all this is basically happening during this adventure phase. So you're going to fire, move around, maybe do some melee combat, and then have adventures and all the different, interactions on the board. So let's just do a quick example of a test. We'll just do a combat test for now. So when you do combat, you're going to basically take this number here. So let's say this character was attacking this character here. So we had Philip Redlegs versus Spartacus in melee. This would be quite interesting. So we're going to compare his stat here to the reaction stat of Spartacus here, which is a 6. So we've got a 6 on a 6. And for that, we're going to flip a challenge card. So let me flip up a challenge here. So we're going to look at this, and so we're going to say attacker is better or defender is better. Well, they were the same. So this is attacker is better by 0 to 3. And so that's going to count as a hit. So if in this case, this is sort of beneficial for the attacker. Whereas if we had flipped, let's say this card here, attacker is better by 0, well that's a miss there. That's not going to do any good. So let's say we've got a hit now. So now we're going to check damage. So damage is going to compare this one here. This is a 2. And we're going to compare that against the armor here. So we've got 2 on 3. So in this case, the defender is better. So if the defender is better here, the defender is better by 1. Basically, this has a +0. So this number here, when we're considering damage, is going to modify the damage here. So in this case, he's only going to do 2 damage to this guy here. And you can see he's got a 5 hit points. So he got a hit. Now, if he'd been better by some more, maybe we would have modified the damage up. But that's basically how these checks are going to work. You're going to take, the different stats. So if you're doing an adventure that was, focused on strength, okay, I've got 6, and maybe you're doing a comparison of an adventure that requires a strength of 5 or 7. And then you're going to flip this and then see if the attacker, in this case you, in the case of doing an adventure, would be attacker, and then the defender would be the adventure. And you're going to flip that up, and this will let you know sort of success, or really good success, or failure. And then they have here what's called a FOP, which is a failure of something proportions. I just know it as FOP. Painful proportions. So if you fail that, then you don't want to do that because something bad is going to happen back to you usually. So if we take a look at this one here, you can see you'd compare this stat here to of a 6. You will get some bonuses if you match the age and the different traits here. And then you've got sort of the results here. So if you had a FOP, you basically just kicked out, and then you're going to get placed out somewhere where the enemy wants you to be. This one will just dismiss you. And then, different results here. So in this case, you'd get 2 elite cards. And then you've got some other checks here. And that is the honor bonus. So if you take a look at the player's honor here, so he's got a 5. So you'd flip this up here. And then, you get a little bit of an honor bonus if sometimes you're able to excel at completing these different challenges. So, and again, these challenges are super variety, lots of variety. I showed you with the encounters, you got pitching mounds. So I've seen some where you basically go to knitting class or something like that. I'm not sure. So there's just a ton of different sort of random elements kind of just thrown in there. So basically the point of the game is you're going to play a certain number of rounds, or you can even just choose a time limit. You can do 12 rounds or 2 hours or whatever you want to do, and then call it. And then you're going to get different achievements for having prisoners, for having completed certain adventures on the board. And then you can have sort of an immediate victory as well. There's a lot of different victory conditions. Basically, it's sort of like scenarios, but it's not a scenario-based game. It's sort of like pick your own rules, and from this sort of list of rules, and they have sort of like a main game, based on the different achievements. You can just choose to play that. That's how I've been playing it. But I could definitely see people sort of mixing and matching the different, bases and different things, and just trying to set up, in a sense, their own scenarios. But basically the strategies and different things are going to stay the same. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. I know it wasn't exhaustive kind of tutorial, but the lucky thing for you is if the game seems interesting at all, the game basically is built as a tutorial where you kind of slowly introduce all the different mechanics, movement, and then fighting, melee fighting, and then combat, and then it introduces the bases, and then it'll introduce like Lilith's Lair, and then different challenge areas like that. So by doing that, the game is very easy to absorb. And like I said at the beginning, I just don't want to go through all of it and then expect you to... First of all, you won't remember it. Because, maybe if you sat down and I did a tutorial video and you kind of, had it going along with the game, maybe you would. But definitely I would play it through those sort of staged environments, and then you can kind of get into the full game, which is really what you want to be playing with, the bases and all the different adventures and things that people can have. Now, this is a very unique game, obviously, but if I had to kind of compare it to something, I would definitely compare it to Mage Knight, the board game. Now, it's much simpler than Mage Knight, the board game. I wouldn't say much simpler, but it's definitely simpler. It's a lot easier to digest, and even though there's a lot of different things that you can do, there's not a lot of rules exceptions. Mostly it's like you do a thing, you flip a challenge card, and you kind of compare the stats like I showed you there with the fighting, or you compare it to whatever attribute the adventure is and things like that. Or if you're going to attack a base, there's basically a chart on the back of the rule book. You go, okay, this is a strength 5. Okay, I'll do this, and then flip the card and see how I do. And so you're going to get a lot of different items. that are totally random. Like the other day I found a bicycle, like, okay, I found a bicycle so I can move a little bit better, which is actually really cool because it kind of helped me, get around a little bit better. So even though it has sort of it's kind of anti-theme in a way, because the rulebook explains, I didn't explain this, it's basically sort of way in the future, and these aren't the actual people. So when somebody is William Wallace, it's not actually William Wallace. It's sort of like they were able to sort of like clone or make like sort of a hologram of William Wallace, and sort of, through their computerized, futuristic skills, able to basically give you actually William Wallace for a time period, and then, you kind of like go into a virtual reality machine, and then you basically are playing that. So it's really weird, but it is kind of interesting to have these sort of different ages and things kind of smushed together. And you go on and it definitely feels more like an adventure than Mage Knight, because Mage Knight is such a, I don't know, I'm trying to be careful here because I really enjoy Mage Knight too, but Mage Knight is such like a puzzly Euro approach to this. But it's definitely more of a cohesive game. It's in, one universe with kind of one style of play, but you're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of analysis paralysis, with Mage Knight is going to happen. This one, you get the hang of this thing. Like I said, you move around, you flip challenge cards, and you go. And it's more about, the interactions and kind of seeing what's going to happen. It's like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen now, because, the quarterback is gone into the future, and he's going to deal with these aliens, and how's that going to work? And he's got to put down an uprising on a planet. It's like, what? But I'm just going to flip a challenge card and it's going to happen. Okay, well, that seems like a game by itself, but it's like an instant thing, which is going to be weird. But I think that's the thing that I like about the game, is it basically has these different random things that happen. But it's not to say that it's not strategic. I mean, it's not super strategic because, it is kind of random. But you have sort of the idea of, okay, well, this guy's from this age, so I should send him over here. And this is, he's got a lot of strength, so I'll send him, to do this kind of task. So there is some decisions to make, and they are relatively straightforward. But that doesn't make the game any, less fun, I think, because you have those interesting, mashups, if you will. The game also does provide a lot of excitement. So if I had to kind of compare this to Mage Knight, there's a reason I'm comparing this to Mage Knight, I'll get to it in a second. There is excitement about, what's going to happen. When I go on this adventure, it's going to, give us, sort of the lead on a certain achievement or something. So you flip the card, you see what happens, you maybe get screwed by the card, or this card helps you, and then you got to kind of, regroup from there. Now the thing about Mage Knight is, I think, it's hard to say because there's like different types of players in this world, and I know some folks that have played Mage Knight and they don't want to play it again because it's just too mind numbing, and they want to kind of go have a fantasy role playing ish experience. Okay, so this definitely leans more to that side of it, with still retaining a solid sort of game engine underneath that. So I think if you were somebody that wanted to like Mage Knight, was intrigued by Mage Knight, or maybe haven't even played Mage Knight, because you've been so intimidated, so to speak, because of the things people say about it, I would definitely take a look at this, because this game is super fun. I mean, I'm telling you, it's very, very fun. Now, it doesn't have that. It's not going to engage your that sort of cerebral strategy kind of thing, a lot. It's there. I mean, it's engaging, but it doesn't. The replayability is not going to come from the strategic sort of, delving into all of the different permutations of the strategy. The replayability is going to come from the thematic stuff, from the interactions, especially once you add in the, master set. That's just going to like blow the doors off, I'm kind of at this point, with 3 plays, I kind of also didn't play it just because I was going to do a review of it, and I didn't want to like cram too much into my head as far as the different interactions. But I think now I'm gonna throw all the things together, organize all the pieces, and then just have it to break out, and just randomly pull stuff and just be surprised by the story, so to speak, that's going to happen. So anyway, my point is, if you didn't like Mage Knight, you might like this, and if you did like Mage Knight, you might still like this. But you know, that's give or take. But I think if you were kind of getting Mage Knight and wanting to have, you know, this kind of epic adventure kind of thing, but you were just kind of put off by the density of the rules and sort of the, you know, some of the different rules with the movement and things, you know, then I would get this, because at least get the base set and then give it a whirl, because that's only going to set you back a little bit. I'm only saying get it and try it out. I know that's sort of well, whatever. Maybe it's not my responsibility as a reviewer. It's not my responsibility to do anything. But if you're intrigued, get the base set, because that's like $30. And then if you really like it, then get the master set, because then boom, you're like set forever. And the cool thing is, you know, again, I get back to the replayability. The replayability is going to be really high with this, because yeah, the mechanics are going to kind of stay that same way, but the interactions that you're going to have, those little, you know, kind of memorable events and, you know, moments in the game are going to be so different, so different. I can't stress it enough once you add in all of that stuff. So anyway, that's Duel of Ages 2. Definitely take a look at it. Definitely a high recommendation for me as sort of this boxed RPG thing-ish. RPGs. I don't know. It's not strategy. It's not unstrategy, but it's definitely a story that happens for you. So I think, and it's fun. So that's it. Thanks.